everyone, Ronnie Landis here, and I want to welcome you to the first video in a special training series that I want to deliver to you just from my heart, from my mind, from all the different ideas and concepts that are swirling through me, that are vibrating through me on a regular basis. And I just thought to myself, you know what, let's get this on camera. Let me share a message with everyone and just really give something of value. I love what Anthony Robbins says, is that we're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom. And from the moment he said that, it really jogged something in me. It caused me to realize that we have an abundance, we have an opulent abundance of information in the world. But the problem is, not everyone knows how to use it. Right? We hear everything about nutrition. We hear about all the ins and outs and the doodads and the different controversies and the conflictions and just the vast array of information, but we don't always have the proper perspective in which to apply that information into the mosaic of our uniqueness. Remember, everyone is unique, and we need to instill a principle of uniqueness with every case that we're looking at. And so more than just giving information here, I want to deliver a frame of reference. I want to deliver a perspective on the power of raw food nutrition. And to me, raw food over the years was more about a little bit about what was obvious, right? When we were first born into the world as human beings, we weren't attached to a stove, a microwave, cooking materials, manipulation tools to manipulate our environment. We had to actually create certain tools to start doing that for the necessity of survival and human progression. Now we live in just complete abundance. We live in prosperity at all times. And so we get a little confused. We lose the perspective of the time we live in. And what has happened because of the opulent abundance of options available to us is that somehow through the doom and gloom news report that we've all been programmed with, we've kind of gotten this restrictive, almost like Newtonian, reductionistic, scientific, materialistic perspective on reality when we're more contractive. We're contracting to the menu board of the universe. We're contractive to all the options that exist for how we can live our life, for how we can channel more life force energy throughout our physiology and express our greatness into the world. Remember, when we regress, we contract and we go in and we're scared and we're sympathetic dominant and we're just kind of in that fight or flight mode. We have kidney weakness because the kidneys have a lot to do with the lack of willpower, with fear. So most people are in a fear dominant physiology, and what raw food does beyond enzymatic saturation, beyond flooding the body with enzyme reserves, with heightened water content, right? Being more electrolytical and causing us to become more electric, beyond all the amazing micronutrients and phytonutrients and everything from an analytical perspective, what it does is it reformats the perspective in which we're living our life. I had a conversation with my friend Chris a few weeks back where, the whole yoga community and the raw food community here in Sedona, we're hanging out at his house, and him and me got into this really amazing philosophical conversation about the state of nutrition, some of the nutrition circles, the paleo circle, the raw food, the vegan vegetarian circle, and we're just like having this amazing conversation. And one of the inspired topics that came up was the catalytic power of what happens when somebody comes from a standard American diet. They've been eating tons of animal foods. They've been eating toxic, rancid oils and all the other processed foods. And the stuff that's actually numbing their spiritual perspective, that's numbing their sensitivities. So the reason why people are insensitive is because they're literally not sensing the sensitivities in their body. They've been numbed out. And so we were talking about what happens when someone gets on raw food, when someone starts to incorporate more fresh farmed, organic, green leafy vegetables and salads and raw juices and superfoods. When someone starts to saturate their body with the mana that is literally encoded in the vegetable matrix, something amazing happens in their body. It actually becomes an open conduit for the spiritual insights, for the ideals of nobility and prosperity and authenticity. And that person who was possibly coming from more of a business perspective, more of a linear frame of reference, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of like, abacus thinking, very left brain dominant, not in their heart, more in their head. What happens is that they have an opening in the encasement of their heart. Their heart starts to open up and they start to become sensible and they start to sense the subtle vibrations that are present in our atmosphere, that are present in our environment, and more importantly, are present and vibrating within our physiology, within our nervous system, within our musculature, within our skeletal structure, within our brain, all of it, right? Our hormones, the whole thing. And we start to become an up-leveled and upgraded version of who we are. It's really amazing. I've come to find out that before I got into raw food, I was very heavily into personal development, into success literature, success philosophy. I listened to all the great orators. I remember one of the first books I ever picked up was a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, which was all about the thoughts that we think are creating the bedding ground in the fertile soil of our mind. And our mind is like a garden. And if we let the weeds, being negativity, desperation, deprivation, scarcity, we let those weeds invade our garden from the subconscious, then we become overrun with negativity. And that becomes reflected on our outer environment, in our outer reality. Well, I had been into that information for a long time, and that information was amazing, but it never really hit to the core of my being until I started doing 32 ounces of green vegetable juice. Until I started applying raw cacao concoctions and herbal elixirs and green leafy vegetables and fruits, high water content, seeded fruits. And all the amazingness of this lifestyle, something erupted inside of me, and I became more of an enlightened being. Enlightenment meaning I lightened up, right? I wasn't addicted to the seriousness drug or the seriousness virus of the 20th century in civilization that we live in, right? I became more relaxed. I became more authentic, essentially, and I got more into my cardiozoic faculties, being my heart. So the message here is to share with you the power of raw food. Once we get past the analytical data of nutrition and what kind of diet we need to organize for the optimization of the human being, we get past all that and we get into experience. What is the experience that raw living food can bestow upon each and every one of our lives? Well, one thing that it does is it creates a gateway for more authenticity. I think what is happening in our world and why so many people feel a disenchantment from the natural vibrations of magic and mysticism and the overall synchronistic mystery of life, because that's what it is. It's like a story, and we're all role-playing within the story of creation. Raw food helps us tap back into a little more of that magic. It helps us experience a little bit more of the shamanistic mystery that is going on all the time. And we start to get tapped into the serendipity. We start to get tapped into the synchronicity, and we start to see how our life is more like a storyline, and events are linking up progressively and somehow perfectly, like the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell used to talk about all the time. And we see that our place in the world is much more expansive than we ever thought it was before. That's the power of saturating yourself with living vibration, of nutrients that are concentrated in this plant matrix that actually start to imbibe a vibration of life force energy. One of the things for me is that raw food infiltration or raw food saturation did for me is that it took me from becoming a nutritionist, and over the years it led me to becoming an artist of nourishing life force energy, right? That's what it's all about, is about amplifying the force of life, or the God force that lives within us and that allows us to express that beauty and that magnificence of who we really are into the world. It allows us to play a much bigger game than we ever thought was possible. And what I've seen happen in other people is that no matter how much success literature they listen to, no matter how many seminars and lectures and businesses they created and all this amazing stuff, one thing has been obvious to me is that there is no more greater tool for instant transformation, for instant reformation of our ideals, of our hierarchy of values than raw food. It's the greatest catalyst for transformation of the human being that exists in our world. There's no supplement, there's no pill, there's no audio tape, there's no diet that exists that can match the immediate transformational effectiveness of raw food saturation. And I think that's the message I want to share with you more than anything, is because in the Holistic Health Mastery Institute, I go through all the ins and outs, all the amazing nutritional and holistic health information that's present in this expansive world of nutrition, and all the cutting edge information that you can't find anywhere else. But the message coming through me now is all about the bigger picture. It's about playing a bigger game. And I found that an attitude of gratitude is very difficult to assume if our body is in pain, if we have aches, if we have issues, we have joint issues, we have brain fog, we have candida issues, we have nerve insulation or demyelination problems. If we're not the most robust and vibrantly healthy version of ourselves, it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to maximize our potential for enthusiasm, for happiness, for love, for joy, and for contribution that we can have by simply adding in the living vibrations of plant-based nutrition, specifically living food nutrition, into the fabric of our life. So I hope